Welcome back, everyone. This is the Star Wars podcast. I am your host, Day. I am joined by my co-host, Ian. And today's topic is one that I'm really excited to get into because it's a fan favorite and I think, offer a little more discussion and a little less factual than episode 1 was. And that is going to be the question, is Ahsoka canon? Ian, what are your first thoughts?
Is Ahsoka Tano canon? So, I know in the last episode, we talked about how there's like these different veins of what influences canon. Um, because there's like production stuff
Mm-hmm.
where they're like, we're production, we're producing the thing, we need the thing to be in the place to make the IP happen. And then there's like actual in story stuff, and I feel like Ahsoka is canon because something or somebody, a participant of a canon story, doesn't have to be in the limelight, like.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that that's a point of contention, but I think that there is precedent for uh, Ahsoka to just be a secondary character. You know, like
Yeah,
it's canon that Chewbacca is around and has been around for a long time,
a very long time.
and Chewbacca's not like the savior of the universe. He's just been around. So I feel like if Chewbacca as like a supplementary character to existing plot exists, then in canon, then why can't Ahsoka? For her contributions to the setting, I think she deserves at the very least canon recognition.
So yeah, I think I agree with some of your points, but
What does everybody else
she
say?
isn't that side character. She is a fan favorite. She had basically an entire TV show about her. She's about to have her own mini series. She is someone who the fan base has asked for years, and so kind of getting into it is like how much of that is Disney actually writing her into canon, or how much of that is just crowd pleasing. And so, with that, we're going to get into it. I'm going to run through my first few points, kind of as a context. Because first off, we need to ask, what is canon? Like, what does that actually mean? A lot of people use it, but what does it actually mean? And it looked like that the most explicit definition that I can find, at least on the internet, is that canon is in fiction. Canon is the material accepted as officially part of the story in an individual universe of that story. It is often contrasted with or used as the basis for works of fan fiction. Now, this is not something that Star Wars is at all, ignorant of. They know that there are many, many books, there are many, many, like, web series, comic books, manga. There are so many different iterations that are not produced or distributed by Lucasfilm and now Disney. So they're not a stranger to things that are not specifically asked for or executive produced by George Lucas. And so this is where some of that ambiguity can come into play with characters that have not been in the movies, like Ahsoka Tano. So a little bit of history also with these points is when Disney bought Lucasfilm, which is back in 2012. Originally, in 2014 to 2015, they made the announcement that they were going to throw out a lot of the canon that was already accepted by Lucasfilm and George Lucas.
Which made people lose their mind just putting
Yes.
that out there because of the hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars a single person could spend on comic books and on literature.
Mm-hmm. Like you're also looking at video games. You're looking at uh, 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 memorabilia from that stuff. You think Darth Revan, you think the Old Republic, you think all this stuff that would happen before the movies that Disney's just kind of like, we're going to write our own stuff and might make it ours. People put years of work into that stuff. And so, obviously, very quickly after 2014, 2015, Disney backtracks and says that, oh, no, 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 not everything. We're not throwing out everything that wasn't in the movies. We're just going to kind of rewrite the history of what happens after episode 6. And so we're obviously referencing episode 7, 8, 9. Um, and with that point, we know that at least what Disney considers canon is somewhat fluid, or at least it's not static. It is open
Sure.
to
Yeah.
interpretation, is open to change, even with the main company itself.
Right.
And with that, you look at when Ahsoka Tano was first introduced, which was the Clone Wars animated movie and the Clone Wars TV show. And the TV show ran from 2008 to 2013, which was all pre-Disney. When Disney buys Lucasfilm, Lucasfilm announces that the TV show is like being deprioritized. It does kind of have a soft ending with season 6, and we don't really get a conclusion to Ahsoka Tano's story. The last thing we see, I guess we technically do, we see her at the end of season 5, where she is ostracized by the Jedi Council, under trial for sabotaging the war efforts and trying to basically take down the Jedi Order, at least separate them from the war efforts. And when she's proven innocent from that, she's betrayed by her family, of like, you guys didn't believe in me. I was trying to tell you this entire time that it wasn't me, and you guys didn't believe me until I had to catch the perpetrator, right, like red-handedly. And she ends up leaving the Jedi Council. She is no longer a Jedi, and she just kind of goes out onto the streets of Coruscant, and that's the last time we see her. Then Disney, through much fan sentiment, fan requests, probably like petitions and all that, they create the final season of the Clone Wars TV show, season 7, that focuses exclusively on Ahsoka Tano. There's like, the Clone Wars TV show didn't focus on Ahsoka or Anakin specifically. They were the main characters, but they weren't the only main characters. There were episodes that they didn't even appear in. There were episodes where we saw Ahsoka but not Skywalker. We saw Kenobi but not Ahsoka. It was kind of a fluid, revolving cast. So showcasing the war itself, not just Ahsoka. Season 7 kind of gets back to what the fans wanted, and it's Ahsoka. We see her life after the Jedi Temple. We see her kind of get roped back into the dealings of the Jedi Council, and we kind of see what happens with Order 66. We see what she does to escape that and to show up in Star Wars Rebels, which did take place before season 7, so we knew that she was alive after that. We just didn't know how. Ooh, that was a lot. And so I get
right, like
yeah, and so I get back, or sorry, continuing, I go into the next animated series, which is Star Wars Rebels, which was produced and distributed by Disney, or Lucasfilm and Disney, from 2014 to 2018. So this was after Disney bought Lucasfilm, and this was after the Clone Wars TV show, but before season 7, in which the I think first season, maybe early second, we see Ahsoka Tano. So this is Disney, even though they deprioritized and did not complete or did not continue the Star Wars TV show at the time, they did show that Ahsoka is alive, that she is, into some degree, a product of Disney and their media.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is even further solidified with The Mandalorian Season 2. She makes the one episode cameo where she's there, she's live action, she's just, as badass as ever. She's got her twin white lightsabers. And then even shortly announced after that a Ahsoka limited series is going to be coming out. Now, there's not too much that we know about this right now. This could take place after her appearance in The Mandalorian, so this could be post episode 6. This could be happening between Clone Wars and Rebels, because we kind of see where she goes after season 7 of the Clone Wars TV show, but we don't actually see what she does to get from there to Rebels. We don't know how she gets her lightsabers. We don't know how she continues to learn and use the Force if she, ends up doing that. Because she isn't a Jedi. She even self-proclaimed is not a Jedi anymore.
Right.
So that's open to a lot of interpretation. I'm super excited for it. Everyone, all the fan base, everyone I know who knows Star Wars, who they love Ahsoka, they just want her to continue to be on the screen, and like there's just so much hope with that when they introduced the live action character. And so that's the history, that's the context, and now it does kind of boil down to what is the true canon? Is it the TV shows? Is it the movies? Is it both? With everything that Disney has put into appeasing the fan base and bringing back Ahsoka and showing that she does exist, she's still here, she's still, a fan favorite character. Do you think Disney's canon are just the movies, or do they extend beyond that?
Do I think that Disney's depictions of Ahsoka is canon?
Well, I guess in general, do you think the canon is just the movies because she doesn't appear in any of the nine movies?
Right.
She had a chance that they showed Ahsoka was still alive at in Rebels, which took place before episodes 7, 8, 9. So they
Mhm.
very could have easily brought her in, but they didn't. And so, do you think Disney's kind of going with the movies as the true canon? Do you think they're going with TV shows as included canon? And do you agree or disagree with that analysis?
I think, I mean, obviously, I think that there's probably a lot of people that have thought about the same thing, and have had a lot of long discussions about the same thing. I I feel like, um, I feel like it's not just about the movies, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm gonna take that stance on it because if I recall correctly, you had a differing opinion, or at least you shared with me an idea about like one of the arguments for why Ahsoka might not be canon. And I think that like if we're talking about it, that we could explore that point right here. Make our cases, as it were. I
Here's,
To
here's.
start, I certainly feel like if there was a case to be made about Ahsoka being canon, she has been shown in a lot of fiction that maybe Disney was trying to disestablish as canon.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been, but like it is now like potentially reestablished. She has been shown to be a key contributing factor to a lot of the goings on behind the scenes of the main movies. And like we know that the main movies were revolving around like the saga of how the Force was out of balance and then came to be balanced, where we had the original trilogy of Luke Skywalker and his growth from boyhood to manhood.
Mm-hmm.
We had the prequel trilogy, which was like the context that showed how the Star Wars universe of Luke Skywalker got to where it was, and then we saw the most recent trilogy, which was supposed to be like the closure of um, the impact that that part of like the Luke Skywalker saga and everybody's previous contributions to the universe had, right? We got to see the
Mm-hmm.
fallout and got to see what happened to the kids, right? It was like a prologue in a sense. The inheritors of the galaxy. I think that like just because she wasn't part of those movies, like she was around. She was certainly demonstrably around in other media outside of the movies in ways that influenced what ended up becoming the movies. I hearken to a particularly touching scene of I was it the Clone Wars when Darth Vader is shown coming across a pair of dual lightsabers
Yes.
that like right, you know what I mean? You know what that
Yeah,
scene
that's the
is?
that's the epilogue of season 7 of the Clone Wars, where he does later on find Ahsoka Tano's buried lightsabers. Like we see her bury them, just a moment prior,
Right.
and he stumbles upon them, which
You know?
I think kind of alludes to that happened prior to Rebels, her appearance in Rebels, because they fight like the arc of watching Ahsoka Tano discover who Darth Vader was and what happened to Anakin Skywalker, because she didn't know. She just knew that Order 66 happened. she knew that most likely the Jedi Council has fallen, and she went into hiding. So she would not have known, because the only people that knew were the part of the Empire or Obi-Wan Kenobi. I guess
Right.
technically Yoda. Like they're the only two Jedi that knew, and she was never had any contact with them after. And her finding out who that was such an emotional roller coaster. And to watch their confrontation, I think at the end of season 2, their fight was just something that she's like, I know you're there. There's good in you. And you see that his helmet gets cracked, and you just see like the scarred remains in the Sith eye poke out. Like that's all she can see, and she's like, you just see her dread. She's like, no, I've lost you. Like you're not my master anymore. It was so well done for a series that I'm on the edge about how if I like it or not, tending towards I don't like Star Wars Rebels. That Ahsoka saves it. Ahsoka
Well,
saves it.
right, like bringing it back to that original point that I was making, that like yes, that like is an example. Maybe it's referential. Maybe it's referential to other things going on. You know, maybe it's referential to other things going on in like canon that they're just making allusions to for the sake of making allusions to tease the fan base, you know, whatever have you. But I mean, there was a relationship there that was formative. That was a demonstration of how the universe would later pan out. Um, I think that to ignore Ahsoka's contributions to the canon universe might be a bit aggressive, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think? What do you think?
So I'm spending all this time trying to think because you said that I had a point that I made that might have differed, and for the life of me, I cannot remember.
You
Just
were trying to explain to me why it was that people felt she wasn't canon. I believe is what I that's that unless we're talking about different things. I'm fairly confident that that was the description you were giving me was one of the arguments being made for why she wasn't canon, having to do with how she actually doesn't really show up in any of the movies, and whether or not
yeah,
that actually means she was an impactful part of the franchise.
that's why. Well, that's why we're talking about this in the context of the TV shows versus the movies. Like, what's the true canon? Like, can the canons exist outside the movies? Because like, there's so many just contradictory, you know, what I like to call it head canon. It's like it's not actual canon, but it's in your head how you justify certain things or how you or how you want to see things played out, like after or outside of like what you're shown. And so that's what a lot of what happened with Star Wars was is that after episodes 4, 5, and 6, people are like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, what happened after? What happened before? Like, what were the Jedi? Like, that's everyone's head canon, but that's not actually accepted canon." And it's just like, where do you draw the line? Because it's all contradictory. Like, it's impossible unless you're George Lucas. It's impossible for you to be like, "This is canon. This is not." So having a company kind of dictate that really throws it into the whims of whoever's in charge at that time, and that's not really fair to do to a series or to do for a character and a fan favorite character at that. And so in my mind, it's really hard to argue against having the movies be the true canon. Now, I'm not saying Ahsoka is not canon. I am just saying that I see a very, very strong argument as to why the movie should be the true canon and everything else is kind of maybe not inconsequential, but is up in the air because the movies are going to be there. They're not going to be really changed. Like they're just there. They're solid. They're set in stone. You know, and so it's just it's hard. Like you can't. I don't know. That's just kind of how I see it. Do do I think Ahsoka is canon? I don't know. I honestly don't know where I fall on that. I think right now I want to say that she is. I do believe that she's canon just for the sole fact that Disney is kind of folding her into it and they're doing more. They didn't do just because originally I thought it was just season 7 of the Clone Wars. So I thought they were just trying to make fans happy, but then I realized that Star Wars Rebels happened before season 7, so they already alluded to her existing and kind of being here. They finished off the Clone Wars TV show. They introduced her in the Mandalorian, which is kind of like the primary focus right now because the movie's kind of flopped. That they made the Mandalorian show and that it's so vastly popular that they're making six. They've announced six other like TV or miniseries, basically spiraling off of that success. And then one of them is heavily focused, and not heavily focused. One of them is about Ahsoka. That I think, I don't know. I think, God, it depends. It depends. It really, really depends on how they do it because the next point that I'm going to talk about, it gets into some timey-wimey BS, and it's really just hard to argue.
Yeah, like this. So this is the
It's
part.
really hard.
This is the part that I'm interested in listening to you talk about more because I actually wasn't aware of
I
a lot of this stuff that's been going on.
I wasn't either, and it's because so what I was looking up, the context of this, of what I found was I was looking up the original kind of Disney throwing out the canon, and I'm trying to find a simple example or specific examples when that happened, what they said, how they backtracked, and all this stuff. And I found multiple articles. Mainly, they were based off of one I think YouTube guy that was known for leaking out a lot of Disney stuff. So not just Star Wars, but Marvel stuff. Like I think he leaked. No, I'm not gonna say that because like I'm sitting here thinking and like I've read a lot of articles, so I don't want to like confuse people. But
Hmm.
he was known for kind of like having an inside man in Disney and kind of showing peeking behind the scenes of some popular, some unpopular, and a lot of controversy, a lot of articles have gone around, a lot of rumors specifically. So none of this is set in stone. That Disney is going to regress as far as the movies go. Originally, it started with Episode 8 because that wasn't because the production reasons of them swapping from like J.J. Abrams to Ryan Johnson to J.J. Abrams again really screwed with like the continuity and just like the linear path of 7, 8, 9 that just isn't there as compared to 1, 2, 3 as a trilogy and 4, 5, and 6 as a trilogy because they're all made by one person who had a clear vision of what he wanted this to tell, and it wasn't three separate movies. It's the beginning, middle, and end of a lifetime, and they kind of hit that. It's Rey's beginning, middle, and end of her lifetime, but it's just so back and forth. And so there were rumors that Disney was going to claim Episode 8 was not actual canon, that it was likened to an alternate reality. And the reason how that they're doing this was that in Star Wars Rebels they introduced this new concept of the Veil of the Force. And I don't remember how Ezra Bridger gets in there. I think there was it was like some secret project that Emperor Palpatine was trying to find, that he wanted even more control of the Force and even more control of the universe because there was like this rebellion growing that they were going to try to overthrow him or at least liberate and threaten his power. And so he wanted more, and he heard these tales of the Veil of the Force, which is like, I don't want to say it's alternate reality. But it affects time. It's this area that exists outside of space and time that's connected
Hmm.
heavily through the Force that only Force users can kind of interact with, and they can go and they can use the Force to alternate things. And the prime example is that at the end of season 2 of Star Wars Rebels, we watched the showdown between Ahsoka Tano and Darth Vader, and how it plays out. She stays behind. She preoccupies Darth Vader, and she lets the main characters escape. And we don't see her. I don't think we see her in season 3 at all. And so it's Darth Vader. We see him later, and so he's being this incredibly powerful Sith Lord. You could put two and two together that he killed Ahsoka because he either didn't recognize her or didn't care, and that's just like heartbreaking that you introduce a character just to kind of kill her off. A fan favorite, to just kill her off. But then they introduce the Veil of the Force, and this is the Back to the Future logic. This is anything with time travel. This is Avengers Endgame, where you look at it and you go, time travel. Why? Why would you do this? Like, there's so many plot holes. There's so many questions left unanswered. It's just, I hate it, and this is why I was hesitant before saying that is Ahsoka canon
Right.
or not. Is if they go about doing this of they were going to use the Veil of the Force as the uh, excuse as to why episode 8, but actually later that they've expanded the rumor expanded upon if they're going to use the Veil of the Force to claim that 789 was not true canon. It was not actually what happened in the Star Wars, timeline that we know of that existed in an alternate reality through which the Veil of the Force kind of shows us. And we know that this does have very powerful implications because in Star Wars Rebels, as I was saying, that we thought, we assumed Ahsoka was dead. We see Ezra Bridger go in, and he actually finds this portal that leads to the exact moment, the exact space of the showdown between Ahsoka and between Vader,
Right.
right after the main characters leave, and he
Yeah.
goes and saves her. So now that she's not dead, they retconned her death, they brought her back to life, and now she's in this kind of area where she's can be put in any space, like place in time that she wants. And exactly, it's so I hate it.
That's a really interesting creative choice, right?
Ugh.
Like obviously it's not unprecedented. And not to cut you off, obviously.
Yeah,
It's just like
I've been talking
to,
for a bit.
it's an interesting choice to make creatively to explore time travel through the Force in the context of Star Wars. No, I am unsure, right? Like I don't know whether or not there are other sources of canon or non-canon fiction, established, or otherwise, um, that explain that like time travel may have happened before, and if there is, then there you have it, right? Like maybe this isn't the first time that the Veil of the Force has been around. Maybe this is like a reintroduction to kind of test the waters to see how people react to it. But in a world that has been so rooted in its canon, its chronology, for so long, it's interesting to do the like X-Men, Marvel, like insert whatever IPs, alternate universe timeline arc thing.
Reset so they can make more money.
But right, like what an interesting idea to like. Because at that point, like you're right. At that point, the question of what is Ahsoka Tano canon becomes one less about whether she presently is and becomes more about whether she could be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's worth discussing, obviously. Um, but there's like this dangerous precedent where people start saying, like the alternate timelines of the various Spider-Men. Like it is known
Mm-hmm.
that there are canonically multiple Spider-Men. There is all sorts of toy deals and all sorts of comic book series, and this wouldn't be the first time that a major form of media, major IP, has kind of like rewound the clock to explore a new concept.
Mm-hmm.
I can recall fairly clearly that there is a uh, a segment of the extended fiction of Star Wars, the Star Wars quote unquote canon books, where Luke Skywalker was supposedly, or Darth Vader supposedly sent an assassin after Luke Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker ends up having a child with said assassin, right?
Mara
And
Jade.
that's like never talked about in any of the movies. We
Mm-hmm.
just kind of conveniently dodged this weird, um, very traumatic, probably situation for this lady. But like, there's this they're here with Ahsoka Tano. It's like this reapproaching of what could and couldn't be canon. That kind of like it it thins the lines a little bit. It makes it less about whether it is like a strict production call, and so it just became that. Like the midi-chlorian counter in episode one was just like a razor handle. Like they just used a handle to a razor or something, and that like became canon. Is that like they
Hmm.
needed some device for somebody to be able to show, oh, we're scanning with the science thing, and so they just got a razor handle, and that's just what they look like now. Um, the scanner technology, or whether there's like a grander scheme to it, where we might end up seeing a universe where Rey and Kylo Ren come back and start doing all this crazy.
Don't. No,
I,
no,
for
no, no. You
one,
can't do that to me.
I
No.
feel like I feel like if they're gonna pursue that angle, throwing out an opinion, that they should do so very carefully, because um, I think that it would be a bad read to think about the Star Wars fan base as just like a new fan base. Like Star Wars, like it or not, has been around for a long time. And even if you're trying to
Hmm.
like refresh the IP, there's still a lot of history. There's still a lot of history. There's a lot of expectations, and a lot of those people that are like coming back to it are coming back to it with an expectation that new audience members are going to be exposed to in some capacity. At some point, if there are going to be new audience members, those new audience members are going to go back and they're going to look through the holocron, right? They're going to go look through all the old ancient stuff. They're going to consult the ancient texts, and uh, they're going to start seeing, hey, wait, no, no, you can't just ignore this arc. This is actually an important part of the series. Ahsoka Tano was totally there, da da da, and it's like they've I think that they've got to be really careful, because otherwise they risk diluting the importance of the of reintroducing Ahsoka.
Exactly. And that was again like a better way of saying what my hesitation was before is that like if they do this time you want me bullshit, if they like shoehorn her in for the sake of like, oh, here's some like vague hand wavy explanation, but here's your character that you want. I'm like, I'm not gonna enjoy this character because I enjoyed it because she has the significance. It's like I don't know, but it's like I fight with that so hard because it's such an easy thing to do, but from a production side, but it's such a lazy and stupid thing to do from a production side. But like they have, but my argument against that is they have the old Republic. They have 10,000 years of like lack of Sith that they could technically have. Show how the Sith have been surviving. Show hell even like show Darth Sidious's like rise to prominence, how he was found and became a Sith Lord. Like find back in the old Republic, you've just there's so much untapped potential that they could create their own IPs and their own stuff. They don't have to borrow from anyone else because George Lucas sets it up so perfectly where he's like, hey, this Republic has lasted like hundreds of thousands of years. And before that, there was an old Republic that lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. And even before that, you have infinite time before time began to do whatever the hell you want. He just chose this specific time because he's like, hey, this was the most monumental when it came to like the Force, as in like there we went from having billions of Force sensitive users to like 10,000 in the Jedi Temple and two that we know of is Sith to really two when it end of episode 6 when it came to Leia and Luke. And then after that, 7, 8, 9, I can't fault them for it. They do kind of expand that back out that hey, there are people who are force sensitive that are not of
Yeah,
this lineage. Like I
right.
do I do enjoy that aspect of what this is because it doesn't really make sense that in 4, 5, and 6 there's only two people. There's been like there's like this handful of people that only are force sensitive. Like it's much more common than you think because of the billions and trillions of systems that are out there. But it's like make something there, you know? Make your own canon there, Disney. Like don't you hooked onto this idea that George Lucas, created this character that was a fan favorite and you're like, "All right, let's milk this for all that's worth. Let's finish season 7 of Clone Wars. Let's make Star Wars Rebels. Let's introduce her there. Let's have her in Mandalorian. Let's have her in her own show." It's I don't want to get tired of Ahsoka Tano, and I fear that that's going to happen.
So what, controversial hot take, what would it take for you to say confidently that Ahsoka Tano is canon? Right? Like
Mm.
hypothetically, what would happen? Let's say that whoever is producing all of this content over at Disney, a bunch of people get together, they have this genius idea, and they execute it all flawlessly. Tell me about this flawless execution. Like, what would it take?
I think if they're going to continue doing movies, I don't think they're going to continue doing movies. There might, but they've also seen that their movies are not as good as their shows, and so why would you invest money in movies if you could make more with the shows?
Right, like paper trails, paper trail.
I would like at least some inclusion of Ahsoka Tano, either a cameo or even like a pretty heavy-handed mention in a movie. That's
That's
why
what
it's
it
like
would
kind of.
take.
I think so, and that's like I don't think that's asking much. I'm not asking you to start making movies about her. I'm asking that like just some recognition in the movies, so that's it's irrefutable that she was actually there, that she was actually integral in the Clone Wars and in the development of the most important character to ever exist in any of Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker, the damn fucking chosen one. You
The
know,
damn fucking.
the damn fucking chosen one. All right, and that's it. I would love to see more of her done right, but I know at one point in time I did ask for more Star Wars, and then we got 789, and so I regret asking for that. Uh,
Be careful what you wish for.
that's why I'm asking for something very very minimal of like some recognition in the movies that like hey she was there,
Sure.
which I do kind of want to talk about. There's a couple of points that I want to hit on before moving on,
Mm-hmm.
which is going back to the Veil of the Force. Now, this is a little circumstantial of how Disney would retcon, would kind of discredit 789 as like the true canon, or at least as not the main canon of the Skywalker saga, which is the Veil of the Force. Now there have been some talks, and I think there are some like extended universe kind of or like behind the scenes footage or whatever of Emperor Palpatine having either on the Death Star or on Exegol, I can't remember exactly which one it was, that he referred to as the Room of Mirrors. And then the Room of Mirrors, which actually people have theorized you can see when Rey confronts the dark side of herself, when she like
Yeah.
this is like uh the double bladed red lightsaber, that the background doesn't look like that room in the uh, Death Star anymore. It looks like a room full of like mirrors that haven't been taken care of, and of course that makes sense because it's been 20 some odd years since anyone's really been inside that building to take care of the mirrors.
Right.
And that's kind of a little bit of how he would be connected through the Veil of the Force. Emperor Palpatine would be, and so that's why like they kind of allude that like if they're going to like that was kind of how Rey was seeing an alternate version of herself. That wasn't her future, or like that. I guess it's even kind of backed
Ah.
up if you look at Episode 5 with Luke
Right.
Skywalker seeing himself as Darth Vader. Like you can, I've not actually seen someone make that argument, so why am I making that argument for you? But it's this. It's not like the future isn't set in stone, as everyone and who's ever tried to meditate upon the Force and look forward. The future is not set in stone. It is up to interpretation. Is up to your decisions. But those kind of peek at like that alternative reality of like what could be, and maybe with the Veil of the Force there is an alternative reality where Luke takes Vader's hand and they overthrow the Emperor and he's evil. There is that where Rey joins Ben Solo and she's evil and she fulfills her rightful place as the Emperor of the or Empress of the Sith.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's like the only argument that I saw of tying the Veil of the Force into the movies, because otherwise it's not really there. Again, it
Yeah.
was kind of a thrown in addition to one of the animated shows. But here's where I hesitate, and here's how I worry. If you look at the logo for the Ahsoka Tano limited series,
Right, you were telling me about
it
this.
looks eerily similar to what the Veil of the Force looks like in Star Wars Rebel. And I do not use those terms lightly.
Sure.
Eerily similar. Similar? I can't speak.
Simulor.
Similar. Eerily similar
Simulor.
to
Right.
the
I
Veil of the
mean,
Force. And so that just kind of blows it wide open of what Ahsoka's, series is going to be about. Like it could be about her trying to find Ezra Bridger and defeat Grand Admiral Thrawn after Star Wars Rebels takes place, or it could just be her time, like her having a connection to the Veil of the Force and her kind of doing whatever the hell she wants. I just, oh god, all this stuff is just like pointing. It's just they're all pointing to the same direction, but not exactly the same thing. And I don't know. I'm.
well, right. Like, and
Uh,
this kind of circles back to again this thing that we keep bringing up about how um, canon can be influenced by the production, right? Like this
yes,
stylized logo could simply be. I'm looking at it right now, right? I don't know if you heard my keyboard.
I didn't.
This could literally be just like a graphic designer's rendition of something that they wanted to communicate that it is a new series, right? Because it's using a type font that isn't very commonly used among other Star Wars IP, and is about like like evokes this idea of adventure and mystery because of the like star chart and the cool almost like Nordic looking script that's supposed to show
Mm-hmm.
like it's an ancient secret language, right? But also like you're very right. Like canonically, if the Veil of the Force, this thing that perhaps Sidious had access to, and that perhaps is something that um, can or has, sorry, yeah, or perhaps is something that has like shown up in reference in very subtle references in other parts of the universe, extended or otherwise. Like this literally could just be that. Like this could be
Yeah.
this whole time somebody being like, yeah, nobody's really, so let's give it a shot, right? Like why not? Then it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be too far outside of the realm of possibility for them to make that kind of a move. We could just be reading into this this design, this graphic design, or this could be, this could be that meme of the like puppet monkey who's like looking kind of like just kind of away from the like ooh, like somebody in
Mm-hmm.
production over at Disney is like ooh, no he's
Well,
don't
but here's the thing. It's not just us though. Like I even looked it up because I wanted to like refresh my memory of
right,
what the
oh
Veil of the
yeah,
Force
right,
looked
right.
like. I just went to Google and typed in Veil of the Force. Not one image showed the Veil of the Force. It was all Ahsoka's logo, and it was all it was it was all articles saying that like how Ahsoka the limited series is going to retcon 789. So we're not
Right.
the only ones who've seen this. We're not the only ones who are talking about it. We're just the smallest voice talking about it.
I mean, but it is such like
Uh,
what an interesting premise, right? To like, I recognize that it certainly isn't the first time, I'm sure, that a community, a fan community, has blown something wildly out of proportion, and maybe it'll fade and it'll never pan out. But like,
well, or then you get Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, where 3 seasons before you know he dies and comes back to life, the fans called it. Like the
well,
fans, or not died to come back to life. It was him being a Targaryen. That's what it was.
yeah, right.
Everyone like from book 2 on was just like he's a Targaryen. Like this is it. Like George R. R. Martin, you can't mess with us. You can't tell us no because this is what's going to happen. And whether or not that's what George R. R. Martin had in mind when he made it, or he just wrote it to make the fans happy, I don't know. And I just worry that Disney that you can't do time travel and not fuck it up. You just can't.
It's risky, right? No, I
You
agree. I
can't.
think going back to that thing that I'd also originally said, if they elect to start referencing the Star Wars extended universe as a way of continuing the growth of the IP through the like multiverse concept,
Mm-hmm.
the Veil of the Force, you know, you do risk. I mean, obviously there are like people have favorite versions of the Spider-Man, right? People have favorite versions of the Avengers. Um, but like it doesn't it's just I don't know that we live in a world where Star Wars is going to be, and this could just be a bad read on my part, but like I don't know if we live in a world where Star Wars can be that flexible because of the kind of like precedent that has been set, because of the kind of expectations that have been set about the series.
I will argue against that only for the fact of what I brought up earlier is that they don't have to make multiple like alternative realities to fix this or to have different main characters. They already have that. Like if I were to ask you right now who's your favorite Jedi, I know it's going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's he didn't have this was before he had a series about him. He was just there. Like people like Mace Windu, people like Mundi, like Mundi. I can't say his name. People like Yoda, like it's just because they didn't have dedicated media to them, or they have an alternative version of themselves, or they happen to be more badass. They have the characters. They can go back in time to the Old Republic and make new characters. They can put anything in between to make new characters. They don't have to do this. They don't have to do this. They're choosing to do this, and that's I don't know if that's more aggravating or not, honestly.
I I see what you mean. Like I do. I get it. Uh I think that they could spend a little bit of time without having to resort to this part of the canon. And
Mm-hmm.
uh I would not be surprised to find out that the reason that they aren't is because of strict IP licensing that George Lucas has imposed over, or even not even just George Lucas. Like there may just
Mm-hmm.
be agreements that have already been made legally between different teams, different studios, different owners of whatever IP, right? Because like, what's that character's name? He was in the comics. He was the one lightsaber wielder who was like, he's a Jedi who's like super brash. He's like way off the wall. You know, he's the loose cannon cop on the edge guy. You know what I'm talking about?
I
I think he
don't.
showed up in the Clone Wars once. He and Obi-Wan were fighting like bounty hunter and
Oh god, well now I gotta look this up.
whatever this guy was, right? Like I haven't I haven't heard shit all about this guy. Like he had IP, he had licenses, but that doesn't mean that like Disney just has complete access to them. There may be sections, there may be segments, right, of like George Lucas's express statement saying you cannot do anything to Yoda's character because I have made him this way, and if you do anything to him, then you break our contract. Like it's a really powerful IP. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that, you know, I guess simplifying my point, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that some level of the conflict with um, exploring the narrative potential of existing characters is like a more delicate dance than it seems, since we're just like lowly fans of the universe and aren't actually part of the
Yeah. I
production effort.
but then we now that I think about it, because I also have this argument because why one of the core reasons why unfortunately I didn't like 789 was because I was tired. Like for me, the Star Wars saga was or the Skywalker saga was done. It was we saw three movies with Anakin, we saw three movies with Luke. I'm good. Show me Old Republic or show me 1,000 years after the fall of the Emperor. Like show the universe rebuilding, show the Jedi Order, like because technically with Rey kind of like I don't know if she's gonna teach people or not. I don't think she is, honestly. If they
I
continue
think
with
she's
this canon,
incognito.
yeah, and that's why I'm saying like, show me 1,000 years from now when the second coming of the Jedi happened, where there's a group of people who are force sensitive that come together and like, well, what do we do? Like, we've heard stories of this weird religion. Like, is this what they're talking about? Like, imagine that exploration and like how that's not in any at all IP infringing. How cool would that be? I already want to see them on the big screen, like, explain how the Jedi came together in the first place. Imagine a second iteration of Jedi coming in, or not even Jedi, of just force sensitive people who don't know the difference between the light and the dark, who don't know if one's good or bad, and like the you know the moral implications there of like what's the better one to go with, or do we incorporate all, or do we stick to one? Like that stuff to me is really cool, and I think they can make something really really awesome about it. And they don't infringe on IPs. They make their own characters. They can do all this stuff, and they're just coasting on what people already know. And that's why I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like all the spin-offs, I think of the 6 spin-off shows that they talked about after Mandalorian, 5 of them incorporate characters we already know. Because there's Ahsoka, uh, there's the one that about Cara Dune, there's Kenobi, there's Book of Boba, and there's Andor, which is Cassian Andor, who was in Rogue One. Only the Old Republic, or Knights of the Republic, I don't know the official title of that series. Only that one does not directly reference a character we have already seen. And I think heavily it's probably going to be about Darth Revan. But
Ooh.
yeah, like
Ooh.
because they're going balls to the wall with the Ahsoka fan service. All right, if they're gonna make something that's Old Republic, go to the second most wanted character to be on the big screen. I think, and even then, that's borrowing from someone else's idea. I would love to see them make something new. I just don't think they're going to.
Right.
Because Mandalorian was new. No one ever. I had not seen anyone talk about a Mandalorian after the Clone Wars. I guess Rebels. Yeah, I don't know. It was a new character. They made this new character, and look how well this turned out. And
Right.
then look at them make 7, 8, 9, which are technically new characters, but are borrowing from existing characters, and look how poorly that turned out.
Well, I mean, I think that there is a little bit more to the formula about why it turned out like the way it did, the movies specifically, um, that have to do with the production and have more to do with um, a high level decision to rip off the Band-Aid. So there's this
Mm-hmm.
thing, there's this like integral moment that I think clicked that resonated in me about the Star Wars franchise. So like this scene, right? Like when ooh, excuse me, Rey is battling it out with Ben, and they're on the super huge spaceship, and like they had just killed Snoke, and like
I mean, okay. End of
they're
episode
hang
8.
right, like they're doing their thing, they're doing their big battling whatever bit. The meme, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, the meme where Kylo Ren like reaches out, and and Ray's like, no, I can't, and he's like, you're still holding on, you have to let go. Right? He has that moment, right? Like that movie, that entire movie, if you watch it, that entire movie's narrative is letting go of the old canon and them trying to do everything they can to set a precedent with other people watching the movie that the old canon isn't the thing anymore. Right? Like they were trying to give themselves the creative freedom to not have to deal with the old canon because of how, as I mentioned, the old fan base was so upset with how they were just borrowing from old IP, like the thing that you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like the response from people was so negative um, that they tried to make a movie where they did that, where they were like, cool, well, we want to do our own thing, so we're just gonna completely uninstall all of this old canon, all this history, and we're gonna try to take it over our own. And maybe it wasn't executed super well, but like I actually really liked that part of the movie. And I'm sure a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people did, and I'm sure a lot more people didn't. But I really liked that part of the movie because of that moment. Because of that moment where, like, in a way, Ben is asking us, Kylo Ren is asking we, the audience, to like let go, to like buy into the ride and see where they can take the rest of the series. And what happened? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened after they did that? Well, the movie generally wasn't super great. it was certainly entertaining, and I watched it, a few times. So it wasn't. I wouldn't consider it a flop. I think that they did their best, and maybe there were some complications in between, and maybe they had to cut a lot in post. Like who knows?
Hmm.
But I think that when we see how people reacted to that movie, we see a lot of people who were very hungry for people to continue pushing on the stuff that they already know. Right? I think that there's reason for Disney to feel like they can't do anything new because like they started from the get-go trying to do something new, and because it wasn't what everybody wanted, it didn't go well. Um, and also because the movies had issues, it also didn't go well. So, like it breaks the verisimilitude. Mando had the benefit of being at the tail end of this preconception of the movies, of like these expectations being set,
Hmm.
of the movies having had their own contained story, and then showing a story that had nothing to do, right? And I say that knowing full well that Mando is actually has a lot to do with
Yes.
non-movie canon, right?
Yes.
With extended universe canon. But like Mando's first introduction has nothing to do with it. There are references. There's it's like, oh, Mandalorian, cool. We already know about the man, but like it literally starts with like bounty hunters, ice world, weird alien creatures that have never been shown in the series before, planets that we've never visited, a cult
Well,
of
okay.
other Mandalorians. Right? There's so many things that they
Yeah.
throw at you that are new with the Mandalorian show that it starts off with this taste that's very different. And then what
Hmm.
they start doing as time goes on is they start like they take the taste and they kind of throw a few things in here and there to make it more referential and more about the normal thing. Right? Like I think that it's like all well and good to want new content and to explore it if they were to do so, and if they're going to continue to do any sort of new content using the Veil of the Force as a thematic contextualization, they're going to have to be very careful, right? To draw it back to my first point, they're going to have to be very careful because of exactly the thing you just said. There's a want for new stuff, but then when they try to do it, there's a backlash, and everybody's like, "No, this isn't what I wanted," because now you're breaking canon, or
Yeah.
because now you're talking about all these other things that don't make sense, and it's like, well,
So
whose fault is that?
So,
you know?
so I'm going to argue with you a little bit. I think a lot of what you're saying I do agree with, but I'm going to argue with it a little bit because I think the the thought behind, like from the premise of 789 versus Mandalorian, the sequel movies were flawed from the get go, while Mandalorian was not, because Mandalorian doesn't replace any known canon. It incorporates it into what we already know and introduces this new concept, but it's also like, hey, we're still part of this canon because of these reasons, but we're not replacing it. 789 replaced canon that a very, very large portion of the fan base loved and wanted to see. And so like that's what happens when you take something away and they've got this idea on a pedestal of like how great this is going to be, and you give them something that doesn't match that, of course you're going to get backlash. And I think that's what happened. And that's why
Right. Like so
Mandalorian
so we're saying
didn't
the same
reach
thing
that.
though, is the
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so that's why I'm saying I'm going to the I'm arguing that like from the premise of 789 was flawed. And even then you see kind of like the strength of Disney's convictions when there are these rumors that are starting to circulate, 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years after. When did Rise of Skywalker come out? Yeah, 2 years. It's been 2 years. You see
I
them,
think.
you see rumors starting to circulate and starting to stew that they're going to remove that canon that is not, that has very, very low viewer sentiment, audience sentiment, and possibly replace it with something that does. And that kind of brings us into our next point is with the idea that the veil of the Force can redo, undo, recreate, and redistribute the movie canon. What do you think Ahsoka Tano
Mhm.
means for the future of the movies? Because if because Ahsoka's not getting a TV show. At least, like from what I've seen, she's not getting a TV show. She's getting a limited series, which is going to be something along the lines of 8 to 10 episodes, possibly without a second season. And so they can take this time and not do too much with it. They can take this time to establish her as like this new canon of like what has she been doing since the Mandalorian, and they can remake 7, 8, 9 to be about her. They could, like, and it's like coming. It's almost coming to a head. If you want to read like all really really into it, it's coming to a head that this could possibly be a thing because they're really heavily laying into the fan favorite, factor of the things. They're trying to kind of start redoing the movies, and that for the first time ever, Ahsoka is portrayed by a live action actress. She's not animated anymore. And so I wonder what the implication of all of this means for like moving forward for Disney.
Right. Um, so I'm willing to bet if we follow Disney's, um, Disney's strategy at the dogma of like becoming the household name, and like owning every IP that's wildly successful and all that stuff, doing big grandiose, like theater busting style, um, media. I think that what they are likely to do is they are likely to not engage with, um, the Ahsoka limited series, in a way that treads too thin of ice. I think that what they're going to do is that they're not going to let the Ahsoka Tano buzz get too deep into the weeds in favor of, utilizing what buzz already exists for Ahsoka Tano and for Star Wars in general. I mean, and it's like newly developed extended universe as a plug for other stuff. I think that what they're going to do is that they're going to set it up. They're going to set up Ahsoka Tano's miniseries to be a launching point for another initiative, right? Like, because Mandalorian was successful, right?
Yeah.
Here's my reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
The Mandalorian was successful, and such to the extent that it was a Fortnite skin. There's like a feature for the Mandalorian, uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
in Fortnite, that there was
I
like
mean,
all kinds of merchandising for
yeah,
Grogu.
baby
Um,
Yoda alone. Just
right,
throwing that
like
out there.
I see potential for Ahsoka Tano, not for like merchandising,
Mm.
but like I see potential for Ahsoka Tano to be a platform that they use to plug the next extension of their plans. That if they're trying to continue to extend their reach into the extended universe and like shy away from the old stuff, the things that are already established, um, that they're actually not going to be as disruptive as you might think for Ahsoka. I think that what they're going to do is that they're actually going to be a little bit more gentle, and they're going to say, "All right, here's her cool story. She's going to do some stuff," and then similar to how they did, the setting up of the Marvel movies, with like most of the individual one-off movies just being set up to contextualize why all of the heroes were in the same place for
Mm-hmm.
Endgame, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that they're gonna be like, cool. Well, we've got like this extended universe exploration that we're gonna do, and Ahsoka Tano's part of it, but she's not the center focus. She'll be a way of us to introducing like this new set of interactions where we'll start seeing more to the world, and they can like focus test a little. They can focus test with a live product a little bit about what people like to watch. If that ends up being like a mercenary story about the clones, like the Bad Batch right now,
I need to watch
which
that still.
I'm very much enjoying. Just putting that out
Oh, I need to
there.
watch that.
Um, then maybe that's what it becomes. If it becomes like another Western slash samurai movie, like the Mandalorian was, not movie, sorry, series, like the Mandalorian
Well,
was, then it's like
media. Yeah.
cool. There you go. You get another one, right? Or if it just becomes like set up for the next big chapter, where they're like, cool, we're planning the three next movies, and rather than, um, hit people with it really hard and try to shock them into liking it, we're just going to slowly introduce them to this thing so that they don't freak out. We're going to slowly
Mm-hmm.
introduce them to like the next wave. of content and etc. I don't mean to just continually repeat myself, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's what it is. I don't think it's going to be as disruptive as one might think. I think they're actually going to be a little bit more conservative. They're going to use the Ahsoka Tano series to like kind of test the waters and prop up whatever the next thing is that they're working on.
But like, what form is that gonna take? Because I think I don't disagree with your analysis. It's but I might be a little biased because I love the movie format. You know, I love having sitting down for 2 to 3 hours and having like a whole succinct section of a story. Whereas shows kind of dole it out and have filler, whereas movies don't necessarily hit that. I don't think, and so that's why like it's like I'm much more likely to watch a movie of something, even if it is longer in the format of a movie, versus watching like a shorter TV show. That's just my own personal thing. And as we're seeing this kind of shift with Disney in general, you're looking at the MCU, you're looking at how they didn't have any canon TV shows as far as the MCU goes, and then they launched WandaVision, and that goes fucking viral. Now they've got Winter Soldier and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, whatever the fuck it's called. I need to watch that, but like you're seeing this format, and then of course with the Mandalorian, and then with they didn't announce a movie in those 6 series. At least not that I saw. They're all like TV shows. They're all limited series. Do you do you think there is going to be another Star Wars movie as long as Disney owns this IP? Because like as you're saying that there's going to be a stepping point, like what does that stepping point look like? Because in my mind, Mandalorian was already that stepping point. It was,
Right.
hey, we're not going to give you a space fantasy anymore. We're going to give you a western. And it's not a movie. It's not even animated. It's a live action show that takes this genre, it flips it on its head, and we send it out there, and it's wildly popular. Like, what is that stepping point like gonna look like? I think they're gonna be, or in my opinion, I think they're gonna be a little more like heavy handed uh, than I think you think they're going to be. But like in your like when you're sitting here looking at it, do you think it's going to be more TV shows? Like it's just going to be an entire interweb of shows and limited series that are only available on Disney Plus, or do you think that they're going to start weaving everything together like they're doing with the MCU, where there are movies, there are shows, and it's just like one big coherent machine with a bunch of smaller cogs working together?
I think it's going to be the whole thing. I think it's going to be the machine of multiple cogs.
Okay, so
Um,
you think they're going to keep making movies at least
I
at
think that
some point?
yeah, I think that they're going to I think they're going to keep making movies. I think that right now they're in a development phase where shows are are the hot thing, and at some point they're going to look at their returns for shows and they're going to think, "Cool. Well, what if we did X, Y, and Z, right? Somebody's going to look at the creative promise or whatever have you, and they're going to make that call, right? Um, they're going to make that call to either like make a movie or to like just continue to focus on shows. My my opinion about them making movies in the future is more to do with that The Mandalorian was a good data point, right? Like they did everything they needed to make that thing land, and they did a good job. You know, production staff, direction, costume, literally
Mm-hmm.
everybody, the writing,
Yes,
everybody about that did
absolutely.
a great job. Clearly, because they're launching a bunch of TV shows, they would not be launching the TV shows if they didn't feel like that was the next chapter for Star Wars, right? Was to do it in the streamable format. And I think that because that is a much easier way to make people become consumers of the IP right now, the way to grab them, that it's going to be like that for a long time.
Mm,
But
okay.
that said, I think that The Mandalorian is one step in a direction, right? I don't think that that's the end. I don't think that that is the one test that they needed to choose how they're going to do stuff. I think The Mandalorian was the keynote that they needed to say, oh, we should be exploring this more. And that's why they launched all of these shows. I bet that if one of the shows flops, we hear that the other shows start getting deprioritized and cut while they reorganize resources, right? Like, because I think that what they're doing with the Ahsoka Tano show is that they're going to set it up, right? Not just for like the canon, but for the IP of Star Wars generally. They're going to set it up so that they can keep doing whatever it is that makes them money.
Yeah,
I think they're like whatever that ends up being. If that ends up being
it's
um, more movies, then that'll be more movies. If it ends up being more TV shows, it'll be more TV shows. Maybe that's not a fully committal answer, but I think that that's why I say that it's going to be them setting themselves up. It's not that it's going to be the next step in like the chapter of the next three movies, but because they're doing more of this thing to gather more data to get like more info on how to make Star Wars be the juggernaut they want it to be.
yeah, it is interesting to, and I think a lot of that trend, as you're saying, is the TV format, the streaming format. Definitely quarantine helped with that because
Oh yeah.
yeah, like having people pay like $10 to watch an entire season, and actually not even an entire season, like multiple shows and movies from their home versus like trying to have big theatrical releases to like kind of make your money back and like to like launch your whole campaign into marketing and to branding and all that stuff that didn't exist for the last year, and it's probably not going to exist for another 6 months at least. Like I know people, the places are opening up. The vaccine, like please go get vaccinated. Swear, please, just please. It's not going to do anything bad. It's going to make you, not die later. Uh, I don't think that. I think that culture has changed. I think it's going to take some time to get it back on its feet. And right now, Disney has this has Hollywood by the reins, and they're kind of leading us. And I think, and I do agree with what you said. I think they're just going to keep going with what they think is good right now, and that's going to be the streaming service. It's just that again, I love movies. Like I'm not super big on movie theaters, but I love movies. I love sitting down, watching a movie, watching the beginning, middle, and end in this one big chunk and not multiple chunks drawn out. So I don't know. I am optimistic that they will eventually go back to the movie format. I think though that if they're going to continue with the movie format, they've got to come out with something big. They can't, if they do another like Rogue One or another Solo, like I'm not saying those were bad movies. I'm not saying that they weren't like well received. I'm just saying that they weren't Luke Skywalker.
Hmm.
I think that they're gonna take that one data point, say like we put this much money in, we didn't get this in return, so we're going back to TV shows solely. They got to do something big with it, and
Right.
I don't know if they're gonna do it or not. But I think that's my one like vague analysis point that I'm gonna leave you guys with. Go big or go home is that's it. Yeah,
Go big
go
or
on
go
Disney.
home. Right. Yeah. No pressure. No pressure. Just
Oh, they don't give it.
redefine the
They don't
entire
care.
IP for me real quick.
Yeah, I'm not even saying that. Yeah, whatever.
I know. I know. I
All
know.
right.
I'm just teasing.
So we have talked a lot about the context, the history of production of Ahsoka, what she's done, where she's been. After all of this, and after kind of like looking ahead, has your answer changed? Do you think that Ahsoka is canon or is she not?
You know, I mean, having talked about it, I still think the principle of my argument about her being canon stands. I still think that it stands because I still think that there's a space for a contributor to like, not be in center stage. But, as we've talked about the potential exploration of Ahsoka Tano as a character and with the potential growth of Ahsoka Tano as a character, or even just the potential growth of the IP as a whole, um, like it actually does get a little more murky because in a world that could potentially have zero Ahsoka Tano but more Mandalorian, like it was cool that she was there, but if a character by definition isn't part of the contributing force of the narrative, then it's kind of hard to justify them being canon. Like the thing that they contribute to is a lot more flexible. Um, so
It,
I I don't know. I don't know that I've changed my opinion, but I think that there's a little there's a kernel of doubt in me where once there was not. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think ultimately I'm gonna hold out for the Ahsoka limited series.
Hmm.
Right now, I'm gonna lean towards yes. I think she's canon. I'm still kind of leaning into the movie factor of everything. That she's not in the movie. She's not referenced. They had time to do it, but they didn't.
Right.
So I think if like the canon going forward is 75%, 90% TV shows moving forward, I think that my argument of the movies are, what you can't change, that if there's no more movies being made, then you have to accept a different form of argument at that point. And so I think that, yeah, if going forward, I think that there is potential for Ahsoka to be like fully 100% canon. But as soon as they introduce Ahsoka Tano and the Veil of the Force as a contributing factor in either that show or moving forward, I will completely, almost honestly, discredit her. Because at that point, I will make the argument that the Clone Wars TV show was of that alternate universe, and of the in the movies, 1 through 6 were the timeline as we know it, and that is the true canon. And you just cannot convince me otherwise.
I see. I see.
And
All right. Well,
I
then
hate
it,
saying that.
I mean, like, then it sounds like on the compass, on the paradigm, I am moved now more closely to where you are presently,
Yeah,
talking it out.
which
So that's interesting.
not
Yeah,
how I thought that would go. I thought both of us would just kind of be like, "Yeah, she's canon." All right, what do we
I
talk for the
mean,
next? What? Okay, we got an hour and a half to fill. What do we
right,
talk about?
right. Like, oh God, now what? We agreed. What? What? How? But
No one's gonna
I,
watch if we agree. Just podcast. Two guys agree. Yeah, that's good content.
it's good. It's great content. Think about it. I can think of things that are like that in real life that I definitely consume.
Mm, but oh, okay, hold on. No. That actually brings me. All right. So now that we've actually kind of determined that where we stand on is Ahsoka canon or not, because I'm a little more on the fence, I don't have to answer this because you think she's canon. The next point on our talking points: if she's canon as Anakin Skywalker's Padawan, where do we fall with other Anakin Skywalker and other Darth Vader disciples?
I mean, why not? Like,
Like, so,
why can't if the Veil of the Force is a thing, why can't the video game,
don't you? No.
right? Like,
I
what?
introduced this to you. You cannot use this argument back at me.
I'm just saying, like, where at one point I may have said, "No, that doesn't make any sense. Silly man." Now I'm no, I now I'm not so sure. I'm not sure, sir. Like, it's what if we what? Why can't we just retcon it all? Maybe maybe there were tons of apprentices. Maybe there's a world where um, Darth Maul was still operating in secret while a bunch of other people were all running around
Do not.
doing.
No. Do not get me started on Darth Maul.
I don't
Okay, I
know.
swear to God, do not get me started on Darth Maul.
Just saying. Food for
So,
thought. That's my opinion. How about that?
there it is. So I was looking this quote right now because I couldn't think of it.
Mhm.
You right now are the definition of no zealot like a convert.
Go on. No, let me hear
So
about this.
no, so it's from one of my favorite shows, probably my favorite show, West Wing,
Mhm.
where uh no zealot like a convert. Like someone is there is no one more passionate and no more preachy to an idea or an argument than someone who is convinced by it. I kind of made my argument. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. You're kind of like, oh, I'm here. Okay, Veil of the Force, let's go. Like, yeah, 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 Veil of the Force, I'm on board. I'm like, no, 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 can't do this.
It's like that. Hold on.
Wait, this is your parents. This is your parents talking to you when you're a kid. They're and you make their argument for them, and you're like, "Cause I said so. Shut up.
Hmm.
Don't quote me to me."
I,
All right.
but you made such a convincing. I don't see why this can't be. This is a sensible argument. You've
Uh,
sold me a product. Is this not what you wanted?
exactly.
It's malicious compliance is what this is.
But getting back to it, the Veil of the Force, yeah, but it's like even this is even kind of goes into what's fluid, what's not, because I've got some examples of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader disciples here. There is a character who doesn't have a name. They are referenced as a smuggler, and they are technically canon.
Mhm.
They are. It is a VR series. It's called Vader Immortal, a Star Wars VR series, and it's either 3 episodes long or at least this character is only in it for the first 3 episodes. It started in 2019. I think it ended in early 2021. I think maybe, and even the sources that I saw looking it up that they were a force sensitive person, kind of tricked to learning the force from Vader, kind of go like learn that he's not the good guy, and they eventually fight him to stop some plot of the series. Again, I didn't like read too much about the video game,
Right.
but more about this character. And again, as I was looking it up, this person, this nameless person, was considered canon because this, I think, oh, I didn't look it up though. Shoot, I didn't, or at least I didn't write it down. I think this was produced by Lucasfilm. And of course, this
Hmm.
is going to be in an era that was after how Disney bought Lucasfilm. And so this nameless person is canon. I'm guaranteeing you, the 3 people who have or are listening to this right now, one of them has heard of this guy, maybe. All
Right.
right. So the majority
That
of
deep
people
into
do not.
YouTube shit.
Yeah, the majority of people don't know this character, and apparently he's canon. You look at Garen Merrick. I think I'm saying that right, or I wrote that down right. Who better known as Star Killer in the
Hmm.
Force Unleashed video games, and I believe
Hmm.
those video games were before Disney bought Lucasfilm. So not only Star Killer, but he had like two clones, like two primary clones that once he kind of like turned against Darth Vader, I think Darth Vader cloned him and then tried to make better versions of him, but he still was the original, so he was better. So he won his fights or whatever. These are they canon? Like did they are technically after Episode 6, so no, they aren't. Nope, I can't do math. All right, they're Episode 3. I'm pretty sure they're four then maybe. I don't know, but like, is he thrown out? Is he canon? Like Disney? Hello. This the video games here. We've got video games here that you're kind of just ignoring. Then you get it to non-American. Like there's a Padawan named Tao who was in the Perfect Evil Star Wars manga, and then there are seven other people that I have found that were considered disciples or learned under Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader from various non-Disney sources. Of course, a lot of this happened in like the 80s and the 90s with a lot of comic books that were spun off of Star Wars before we had 1, 2, and 3. That is 3, 10, 11 people. Are they all canon? Are they not? Like, are we still going on this argument of the Veil of the Force?
I don't know. There sure is a slippery slope here. Oh gosh. I wonder how else we've been able to make a series of IPs exist in a contiguous universe without making them impact one another. It's okay, well, now my cat is yelling at me, so it must be time for us to call it.
Yeah,
I do apologize.
yeah, it's dinner time.
Um, I apologize for anybody that had to hear this delightful little goblin scream into my
Yes.
microphone.
So with that, that's the cat alarm. That is like, okay, you're done with this episode.
The
We
cat
we
alarm.
we employed outside help to keep the timing of this not 3 hours long, like episode one. We apologize for that.
Right, rather than just running a timer and keeping track of it ourselves.
I did, but I got so wrapped up in what we were talking about. We had so much to cover that I just kind of let it keep going until it kind
Yeah.
of came to a little more of a natural close. And this
I
time we're
mean,
just
right.
like, we need to let's scale it back. That's 2 episodes worth. Let's cut out half our talking points. Save it for another episode. So, all right. So we've talked about our opinions. Just two guys on the internet. Is Ahsoka canon or not? What we think, where we stand. So you know what? Just give us a comment. Let us know where do you stand? What do you think? Like, is Ahsoka canon? Is she not? Going forward, what do you think Disney's gonna do with Ahsoka, with her limited series, and even with 789? Like, do you buy into the rumor that they're going to be retconned, or do you think that's going to ruin the integrity of the canon? Again, just guys, let us know. Um, I'm Day. I'm your host. This is Ian. This is my co-host. This is another episode of Star Wars Podcast, and I want to thank you. Have a good night, and may the Force be with you always.